We hope you enjoyed this teaching from Christ Church Birmingham. More teaching can be found at www.christchurchbirmingham.org.
Back from my hair too. But yes, good morning. It is wonderful to be able to share and continue our series in Is It in the Bible? And Gino and Steve have started off our series. And if you have missed those talks, please check it out on the church's YouTube page. They are phenomenal talks. Now, this series is about whether or not common phrases that we might hear or we might say are actually in the Bible or not. So today we're going to unlock the phrase, God will never give you more than you can handle. Who has heard that before? Yeah. Anybody said it before? And who has felt that they have had more than they can handle? 2 hands. I wonder if you have seen this meme. When I was a new mum, my friend sent it to me after I nearly ended up dropping everything apart from my baby. We certainly like to carry a lot. Or perhaps you've seen this meme. How many of you try and unload your car from shopping with as little journeys as possible? I know I do. Thanks, Tan. Yeah. My mum and I joke that it's a little bit like playing Buckaroo. Which bag is going to top us over first? So I want to put something to the test. You know that I like my illustrations. Can I have a volunteer? If you don't volunteer, thanks, Tan. Tan's going to. Emmanuel, can you do me another favour? Would you mind just bringing me a small table, please? Because the one that I've got we're using for later.
So there's a caveat. The last time I volunteered, I got chocolates.
Okay, you're not going to get chocolates, but you will be encouraged, you will have fun, and you're doing it for the Lord. Thank you, Tan. What could it be? I also want to really thank my daughter for lending me her soft toys this morning. So these things look really soft, they look really fun, but they're just for illustration, okay? So bear with me. I've got some things that I want you to try and carry.
Okay.
See how much you can get a handle on, okay?
I love a challenge. Come on.
She loves a challenge. Now, Tan, I need you to work with me on this for the illustration purpose. Okay, that is the disclaimer. Okay. So, each thing, although it might look soft and fluffy, is going to illustrate something that we might have to deal with in our lives. Okay, an unexpected bill. That's hard, isn't it, when you get a bill? Nerves about starting a new job. Trying to remember if you've emptied the washing machine. Tidying up for small group. Remembering to eat healthily and go to the gym. Thanks, Tan, you're doing really well. Maybe you find that she's doing really well. Maybe you find that your roof starts leaking. Okay. That's a bit of a pain, isn't it? Maybe your friend has said something that's challenged you and maybe upset you a bit.
Can't see the problems coming.
You can't see the problems coming now. Maybe you've got an issue at work. Okay. Oh, she's dropped one already. Maybe you hear that your friend is going through something really hard. I'll have a little one now. It's not a little thing. A bereavement. A breakup. Helping your child do a school project. They're fun, aren't they? Your health. Another laundry load. Maybe your car is stolen. Your house is broken into. Or maybe you are being tempted beyond what you can handle. It's really hard, isn't it? And this is great because this is the illustration. Thank you, Tan. Okay. I'm going to help unload you.
Okay.
Sometimes things are really hard to handle, yeah? Did any of that kind of resonate? Do you think, yeah, I've had those things in my life. Don't put them in the box yet. They're coming back. Can we just give Tan a big round of applause? Thank you. Thank you so much, Tan. Thank you, Matilda. I hope you know that we looked after them very well. She's watching. She's like, what have you done with my toys? So these things on their own, a breakup or being told at 5:30 in the morning, I need to take a plastic bottle in for school. They all on their own are okay. But when you've got them all together, they feel too much and it becomes harder and harder to handle them. Maybe, like Tan, you might have them on show. You might say to your friend, can you help me? You might turn around and say then, I'm not going to show anybody what is happening in my life. Or maybe you are so overwhelmed by them that you want to try and put them away from you and forget about them. Perhaps you have prayed to God that he would help you handle these things. Maybe one or two of them have been sorted or eased by God. But you still have that burden and weight of the trauma of experiencing them or handling all the other things. Perhaps you share with a friend what you are handling, and they are well-meaning, and they say, God never gives you more than you can handle. But in that moment, you're like, this is too much. Where is God? What is he doing? And we all know that we have difficult and challenging seasons of life where we endure suffering of some shape or form. So let's see what the Bible has to say about God never giving us more than we can handle. The Bible is full of stories of people like you and me who have been afflicted, challenged, battered, and certainly felt like what they have is more than they can handle. Paul writes to the Corinthians about how he endured through suffering. So 2 Corinthians 1 verse 8 says, "For we do not want you to be unaware, brothers, of the affliction we experienced in Asia, for we were so utterly burdened beyond our strength that we despaired of life itself." Whilst Paul was in Asia, he was in danger many times, and we can read a good account of this in Acts 19 and 20. He faced lots of troubles to the point, he says there in his letter, I despaired life itself. That's big. That's a big feeling. Paul endured horrific torture, years in prison and worse. And he's writing here to the Corinthians that these experiences were so great and he would find it so incredibly hard to cope with them and to handle them in his own natural strength. It was beyond what he was capable of by himself. Paul is saying that if he was not finding help of the strength that comes from God, that he would not have been able to stand the many things that he was handling. In Numbers 11, verses 14 to 16, it says, "I am not able to carry all these people alone. The burden is too heavy for me. If you will treat me like this, kill me at once. If I find favor in your sight, that I may not see my wretchedness." Moses here is complaining to God. Have you ever complained to God? I know I have. Isn't it wonderful to know that we're not on our own with going, God, what? What are you doing? It was all too much for Moses to think about leading Israel. Now, it could lead him to rely on God, or it could lead him to rely on himself and not with God. Moses says he could not bear all these people alone. God was going to have to do it with him and through him. A theologian called Alexander McLaren said, "The best service all human leaders, helpers, or lovers can do us is to confess their own insufficiency and to point us to Jesus. All that men need is found in him and in him alone." Now, Moses was greatly frustrated. He was like, I can't do it. I cannot lead these people. Kill me now. But when he said that, God did not say yes. God helped Moses in his overwhelm, who knew that the job of leading God's people was too big for him to do by himself and without God's help. In a sense, God wanted Moses to see his own wretchedness, his inability to do what God had called him to do in his own strength. He wanted Moses to see that he needed God. And they are just two stories, Paul and Moses, of people that have gone before us who felt that they had more than they could handle, but both knew that they needed God. So how does God help us? Now, oftentimes, I don't know about you, but when I feel overwhelmed, and many people feel overwhelmed, and as though we've got more than we can handle and everything's on top of us, the devil comes in and offers us some lies. Oh, you sure your God's real? Where is he now? What's he doing? Surely your God would be taking you out of this situation. You've been forgotten. Here, numb yourself. Forget about it. Here you go. This will help you. Now, our world and our society tends to want to do that, wants to walk away from the pain and the suffering and the hardship. We want to forget that it is there. And sometimes the world, and I think even us as Christians, in our weakness, try different ways to escape these difficulties and challenges. Perhaps we box them off, forgetting and trying to move on. Maybe we turn to sin, drugs, binge watching TV, mindless scrolling on social media, alcohol, medication, sex, food. Now, don't get me wrong. Not all of these things of themselves are bad. But as long as they are serving us and helping us continue to seek God and his will for us, rather than us serving them. Now, medication, for example, can be a really useful tool in helping us decipher and kind of clear the way of our minds. And I think if you need help, please go and get it. That is what I'm saying. I am not saying try and do it on your own or self-medicate. Please go to somebody like your doctor. Seek professional help. There is no shame in needing this help at all, if it helps you work through these hardships. Now, I know for me, a few months ago, everything became too much. It's always wonderful when you're given a preaching topic and God's like, out of love. That's God laughing out of love. Thank you, Jesus. Everything became hard. Many of you will know the barrages of life and the challenges that we were facing and that I was facing. The trauma and upset of moving, my parents' health, unexpected family bereavements, thefts, house problems, neighbour problems. And those things, like honestly, they just touched the surface. At the start, when these trials were coming through, it's all right, I can handle that. I can keep reading my Bible. I can keep praying. I can keep saying, God, I know you are with me. What are we going to do about this situation? But when they all came and they kept coming and there was no relief from it, it was so hard. I would continue to pray and I would continue to read my Bible. I tried to keep going. I sought counsel from friends and discipleship relationships. But still, why was God letting these things happen? Why was it that he let my neighbour scream at me in front of my very young child? Why was it that he let a car get stolen and a few months later another get broken into? Why was it that my father-in-law died completely suddenly and unexpectedly? Why was it that my mum's health deteriorated? Where was he when I feared for my life? Where was he when the financial implications of moving, house repairs, thefts, health concerns all got too much? I knew and absolutely believed that he was right there with me in the thick of it, but it was so hard to keep hold of that truth. And it is so hard for many people, and myself included, to hold on to that hope that actually Jesus has got his arm wrapped around you and he's like, I am in the thick of it with you. Everything had got too much for me, that I didn't have the mental energy or capacity to kind of speak to God more about it. and I knew I needed help, and medication has been a wonderful tool for me to start being able to see things more clearly and work at these things with God. Yeah, that's the key. It's going back and it's going with God, in your strength, God. 1 Corinthians 10 verse 13 says, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape that you may be able to endure it." Now, we know that the devil is crafty. When we feel like we've got too much to handle, he loves to lie to us and say that there are easy ways out. The devil tempts us often to distract us from God's goodness and being able to handle all the things with God and in God's strength. We all get tempted. We often want to think that our own tempting circumstances are unique or special to us. Nobody else is going through what I'm going through. Nobody else has got the devil tempting me in this way. But God here is reminding us that no temptation is unique. Many other men and women of God have faced the same or similar temptations, and the wonderful news is that they have found strength to overcome the temptation. And I wonder if you are sitting here today thinking that your temptation or sin is so awful that no one else could be doing the same. And honestly, I can guarantee there will be somebody else in this room who is being tempted in the same way, that they thought it was all too much to handle. And the amazing news is that we are overcomers. Through God, with God in his strength, we can overcome the same temptation and more and worse temptations. You can be victorious. You can defeat this in the strength of Jesus and not in your own strength. When we fight temptation in Jesus' power, the devil has to go. And whilst I was preparing to speak this morning, I saw a wonderful story about a girl who explained what she did when she knew Satan, the devil, would come at the door of her heart to tempt her. She says, "I send Jesus to answer the door." When Satan sees Jesus, he says, "Oops, sorry, I'm at the wrong house." Amen, right? He has to go. God has promised to limit temptations to those that we have the capability to endure. Okay? I'm going to say that again. God has promised to limit temptation to those that we have the capability to endure. If you are being tempted, God knows that you can overcome it. Yeah? He knows. I love that. I think it's also really important to know that what we can and can't handle changes, and it is different for different people, and it's different in different years and circumstances. And I think it's also really important to remember that we have a choice as to whether or not we partner with that temptation and that sin, or if we say, "You're at the wrong house." God always gives us a way out of temptation. This is good news. But there will be times in life where we give in to it. It could be taking drugs, watching pornography, gossiping. It's not about God giving us more than we can handle, but that we can come back to God and repent and learn. It's about having strength in him and with him to overcome. If you have ever given in to temptation, God doesn't and will not ever abandon you. God is so loving and so faithful that he will not let the devil destroy us. We know that Satan would destroy us in a minute if he had the opportunity. He wanted to destroy a man called Job, and we can read all about Job's life in the Bible. But God said to Satan, "All that he has," that's Job, "is in your power. Only do not lay a hand on this person." God made it very clear to the devil that he could not touch Job. And we know from reading the book of Job that he lost his possessions, he lost his family, he went through some horrific trials, but he was not destroyed. he did not overcome, or he did overcome. If you're a parent or have looked after a child, I wonder if you do what I do. And now all of my secrets are going to be revealed to my daughter. I wonder if you've ever taken them into a shop and you deliberately avoid the sweet or the toy aisle. I know I do. Now, I do that because I know that the temptation is too great. It is too exciting. All the colours, all the lights, everything at eye level with a very big price tag. But God does exactly the same. He keeps us away from things that he knows we can't handle. And the really cool thing about God is that not only does he keep us from temptation that we can't handle, he provides a way of escape. God will never force us to use this way of escape. He will make it available. It's up to us to take God's way of escape. And this isn't the same as having relief from the pressure of temptation, which some of us might find relief by giving into that temptation. And there's often a wrong way to relieve temptation. And we will often face the same temptations over and over and over and over again until we show the devil and our flesh that we are able to handle it. Now, the way of escape does not lead us to a place where we escape all temptation. That's for when we're in heaven. But it leads us to a place where we are able to handle it with God and we are able to bear it. Being tempted is not a sin, but to entertain temptation or surrender to it is sin. The devil will often condemn us that for being tempted, you shouldn't even be thinking about that. You shouldn't even want to say those things. You shouldn't want to look at that. But actually, that condemnation is from the devil, and we don't need to accept that. We need to make sure Jesus is in our heart, is in our house. And Jesus died so that all would be forgiven, all sin. And this is the way of escape, going to Jesus. It's when we do things in our own strength, trying to handle and carry everything, that we stay far away from God. Jesus died so that all that is given to us as temptation, thoughts about the things that we are struggling to handle or think are too much to handle, they died with him on the cross so that we would have eternal life and eternal freedom. It's being wise, it's listening to God, it's seeking counsel from your discipleship relationships that bring you back to the Bible and point you to God to enable you to persevere. In James 1, verses 2-4, it accounts of our faith being tested. It says, "Count it all joy, my brothers, for when you meet trials of various kinds, for you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing." Now, James has got a big challenge for us here. He is challenging believers to rejoice in their trials, rejoice in everything that we have to handle. Because a tested faith leads to becoming a mature Christian. The knowledge that enduring trials in our Christian lives means that there can only be one response that makes sense: to rejoice, to consider it all joy. Now, James starts out with directing believers to think of the trials that come in life as something to rejoice about. Rejoicing means to find delight and hope in the fact that a trial has come into our lives. James is instructing us to make a choice. The choice is to consider these difficult situations and circumstances and all that we are handling as a blessing, to consider the difficult as joy. Now, maybe you might want to do what I did when I was preparing this and reading. I had to go, what's he on about? James, mate, I want some of what you've got. When you're in the pits of the pits of the pits, how on earth can we find joy? You know, I really want some of what James had. But the truth is, we've all got it, and we've all got access to it. James is desiring for us to take charge of our reactions, maybe not, but he is asking us to see a true perspective from God, to consider it all joy. Not just some of the things or part of the challenge, but all the circumstance. Now, going back to that first meme that I showed you, I've recently been looking at past pictures of me and Matilda when she was a baby or a toddler, and I've been loving the memories. Google Photos brings it all up, doesn't it? And these memories are wonderful, but they are engulfed with the memories of feeling like a failure, feeling lonely, feeling judged, trying to do it on my own, in my own strength. Not only regularly spilling drinks or dropping cakes in Costa, or having the changing bag drop off my arm and trying to balance a baby on my hip, but the anxiety, the worry, the heartache, the confusion, the judgment that I felt others give me, it was a lot to handle in that moment, in the thick of it. But in those moments here, James is saying, consider it all joy. And the great thing is now that is not wasted. I can still look back at those pictures and go, that is joy. I can see that all those moments and difficult circumstances, they are joyful. God gave me my daughter. God answered my prayer. God performed a miracle after years of being told I wouldn't have a baby, I wouldn't have a child. God kept us safe. God healed her when she was newly born. And the wonderful thing about all of that is it points everybody back to God. It's not my circumstance. It is God that I can say, look at what he has done in those difficult situations. This is joy. In James's case, his focus is on the great benefit we receive for the various trials to be an instrument for the testing of our faith. This testing will prove the maturity and quality of our faith. The trials tend to show us where we lack. When we feel like, God, what are you doing? Feeling a bit pruned here. Can you just slow down, taking off my edges, please? But we know where we need to grow. And this knowledge can help us develop maturity. James here isn't speaking about becoming a Christian. He's talking about the life of one as a Christian. The ongoing progress of growth. Now, the testing of our faith produces endurance. Endurance means that we do not quit. We don't give up, or we don't lie down in the midst of the difficult. The kind of living faith that James has in mind is faith that sees things through as a process, a journey all the way to its end, to its completion. Endurance here is making good, God-centered choices that provide and create excellent results, as opposed to selfish choices which lead to poor outcomes. James is saying that this is available to everyone who believes in Jesus, that they have a choice to consider it all as joy, knowing that it produces endurance, to continue our journey of faith, knowing that we lack nothing. Life for each of us as Christians has this kind of possibility ahead, a place where the arrival in faith marks our character as mature. This means living in wisdom, making choices based on what God says is true, and believing that what is to come, which is Jesus returning and us worshipping him, sin-free and with nothing else to handle, that is so much better than anything that the world has to offer. And this is what can bring us joy, holding on to this whilst faithfully enduring the difficulties of life, the things we have to handle. It means that we can consider it all joy to encounter various trials. Rejoicing is the only response that really makes sense when trials come our lives. Trials are a means to an end. They provide us with an opportunity to mature our faith and point other people back to God. And rejoicing makes sense because faith grows endurance, which grows maturity in us. I saw an American preacher called Priscilla Shearer. I've seen her at a lot of conferences, and she popped up on my Instagram this week. She said this recently: "We know that Jesus could have just said, 'Fish, get in the boat.' And you know that this is Jesus we're talking about. Like, this is the same one who told the winds and the waves, 'Peace be still,' and creation obeys his command. He could have just said, 'Fish, get in the boat,' and you would know that all of the fish would just start hopping in one after the other, and just creating a mess in the boat. But he didn't command the fish. He commanded the disciple. He said, 'No, you casting the net. I have a miracle plan for you. I have a supernatural activity that's right underneath the surface of the water. But in order for you to grab hold of what I plan to do, you have to be a participant with me. You have to cooperate with me. That there's something I'm asking you to do. An apology I'm asking you to give. A gift I'm asking you to offer. A step I'm asking you to take. An investment that I'm asking you and I'm requiring of you to give. But if you partner with me, you're getting ready to see something that will blow your mind." How amazing is that? And it's true. Do you know what? Jesus could take all of our trials. He could take all of our circumstances that make us want to go into the pits of the pits, that make us feel less than, that we forget that we are enough in Jesus. That we forget that through him and with him, we have the strength to carry on. Jesus could say, "Let it go. Let it all go. Let this house move go really quickly." He could say, "I will sort out the land issue." He could say, "You will never need to buy a new car again. I will keep it going." He will say, "You will be safe no matter where you go. People flee." Because this is the Jesus who can command anything. But he doesn't. He says, "Come to me, and with me, and use my strength, I will set you free, and you will overcome." All of this is to point others and us to Jesus. The amazing thing is that just like Moses, we can't get a handle on things ourselves. We need Jesus. He takes all of these things that we have to handle, and in his strength, and not on our own, he will have it. Let's just imagine that Jesus is this box at the moment. Obviously, we can't put Jesus in a box. But he will take it all. He will take relationship breakdown, a loss of a job, an irritating employee, an unexpected bill, a roof leaking, temptation, sinning before church. He will take it all. And it makes it so much easier for us to have a handle on it. Yeah? Because he has it all and he took it all to the cross. It makes our burdens lighter. I know I continue to want this. Do you? So no, it's not in the Bible that God will never give us more than we can handle. What is in the Bible is that he protects us. He knows what we have the capability of going through and dealing with. And we know that with him and in his strength, we can handle it. I wonder if